Okay guys, this is the Taurus TCP, very similar to the Ruger LCP or the Keltec P3AT. About the same size and weight, maybe a little bit heavier and slightly thicker. I'm just going to do a little shooting here with it at some steel plates. I'm shooting this steel plate. Alright, I'll begin firing now. Taurus TCP. I found it to be a very reliable and very accurate pistol. This particular gun shoots slightly low and to the left, so you have to kind of correct for that because there are no adjustable sights, but I found it to be a very accurate, reliable gun, and I'll be having a tabletop review coming up here. I'll probably add this clip at either the beginning or end of my tabletop review of the Taurus TCP. It's chambered in 380 auto cartridge. I found it to be a very reliable gun to shoot. It has a nice trigger on it. Alright guys, this is some continued shooting of the Taurus TCP. This is very similar to the Ruger LCP or the Keltec P3AT. I'm going to be shooting at about 7 yards here. I'll start again with the target number 1, and then I'll move to number 2. I'm going to put the full complement of 6 rounds into each target. Alrighty, I'll now move up to shooting target number 2. Again, this is about at 7 yards. The Taurus TCP is an excellent little gun, chambered in 380 ACP. It is in competition with guns like the Ruger LCP, the Keltec P3AT, the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 380, a number of the others on the market. The Taurus, this particular gun is not mine. It is on loan, and I'd like to thank the owner. I won't say their name, but I'd like to thank them. You know, it's a good decision to be a friendly person. It's a good decision to be friendly at the range, because there are people who, as you build a relationship with them and get to know them better and they get to know you better, they're willing to give you the opportunity to borrow their firearms, to borrow machinery and tools that costs hundreds of dollars, and allow you to take it home with you and shoot at the range and then take it home and do a review on it. So be building relationships with those people around you, your neighbors, your friends, people that you see at the range. Don't be afraid to go over and talk to them, because it may result in you being able to gather more knowledge about different firearms and build relationships. So I'd like to thank the individual who allowed me to borrow this gun. The Taurus TCP, I think, has a lot to offer. For one, it is about $300, causing it to be cheaper than something like the Ruger LCP, which runs about $350 before tax. You can maybe buy this gun, the TCP, with some tax involved for probably about $330. So it is going to be somewhat cheaper. I think you'll find that the Keltec P3AT would be cheaper, or in basically the same price range as the Taurus. It has some things though that I like that guns like the Ruger LCP do not have. But First of all, let's go over some of the dimensions of this gun. It is 5.25 inches, so 5¼ inches long, slightly longer than the Ruger LCP. It is 3.6 inches from the top of the gun to the bottom of the grip. It is 0.87 inches, making it about 0.005 inches thicker than the Ruger LCP. And it weighs 10.2 ounces, making it slightly heavier than guns like the Ruger LCP or the Keltec P3AT. But that's within an ounce we're talking about. So that really shouldn't be a massive deciding factor unless you're super, super worried about weight. The TCP has some things that the Ruger LCP and the Keltec P3AT does not have. That wideness, that extra width that this gun has, means that they're able to put things like a last shot hold open in this gun, which is a really nice thing to have. You're going to fire your last round, the gun's going to lock back, you will drop your magazine in the new magazine, and boom, ready to go again. Plus, it also shows you visually that the gun is empty. You pull the trigger last shot, you're not having to, like the Ruger or the Keltec, having to pull that trigger, have a click, recognize that, drop the magazine, insert another magazine, and strip the next round in, right? That last shot hold open is a big deal, to me at least. It's a cool factor that they have put into the TCP, and I like that. It also, the TCP, in my personal view, has a better trigger pull than the Ruger LCP. I have no experience with the Keltec P3AT, but I have heard that it's about the same kind of trigger pull as the Ruger. Taurus seems to have a lighter and nicer trigger pull. I think that may have something to do with the fact that the trigger actually is bigger and it is beveled. It is kind of polished off and smoothed off there, meaning that you have more space to get your finger on. It also seems to have more space in the trigger guard, so you're able to pull down on the trigger. And it seems to have a nicer trigger pull. So it has a nicer trigger pull, I think, a last shot hold open, which could be a really big deal. It has slightly, marginally better sights. Okay, this gun happens to shoot low and to the left. Okay, so let me roll in some targets here. I was in the previous part of this this video, you would have seen a clip where I was shooting this target. This is the first target I shot, number 1. Did a decent grouping there. This is a 3-inch circle. Then one kind of off to the side, but that's a decent grouping. This is not as good a grouping. These were shot at 6 yards. This gun shoots, remember, low and to the left, and I remembered that on target number 1. Got excited while I was shooting and managed to forget that. Put some rounds on here, then kind of walked the rounds up and into where I was wanting to be getting my rounds to be going. But it is a good gun. This one shoots to the left and low, but that doesn't mean that if you bought one that would do that. It might shoot directly to point of aim. That's just what I have found in this particular gun. Again, this is not my firearm. It has had hundreds of rounds fired through it. I have been present at a number of those rounds. I have fired about 100 rounds through this gun, not counting the ones which you saw me firing on camera today. Those were specifically done for the review. And I found it to be very reliable. Before I took this gun to the range, as I was kind of going over it and familiarizing myself once again with it, it was having a problem in that these magazines, one of the magazines it would do the last shot hold open on, and the other it wouldn't. So I took it to the range expecting to be able to show you that. And when I began shooting it, both of these magazines, you can see in my shooting, you could rewind this and just click back and see it shooting at the beginning of this review, and you would see that the magazine did work. And I thought there was a little problem there with the magazine disconnect and this little section here. Not a problem at all. So now it's working. So I took you there to show you a problem, and there was no problem. So that seems to have worked itself out. It was worrying me, though, that one magazine would hold open and the other wouldn't. But shooting it today and shooting every other time that I have, that hasn't been an issue. It was just as I was working with the gun here, familiarizing myself earlier today before I took it to the range, that was having that problem. Maybe something to be aware of. It has good sights. It has the slide last shot hold open, which I like very much, and it has a nice trigger. Let me tell you something that I don't like about this gun. I don't like the way it looks, okay? And that's just me. I like the way the Ruger LCP looks. I like the way that the Keltec P3AT looks. I like the way the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard looks. I don't like the way they did the trigger guard, and I don't like the way they kind of bevel this down. So that second kind of cool factor, nothing fancy term there, turns me off from this gun. I don't like the way this gun looks as much. That's why I don't own it. I don't like the way it looks. Also, and this to me is a bigger deal, these magazines. Do you notice anything strange about these magazines? These magazines go in the gun like this. Okay? Do you notice something funny about that? Most magazines that look like this go in a gun this way, meaning this lip is away from the shooter's hand, pointing towards. So in a shooting scenario where I was needing to reload quickly, whether that's at the range or in an actual life and death situation, I would pull this magazine out of my pocket, and because I shoot other automatic guns that have magazines that look like this, and they all go in the gun like this, I would try to jam it in the gun like that without thinking. That would be just my natural reaction. For that reason, I really don't like the Taurus TCP. I don't like them doing this kind of unique thing. I think they may have done that to try and keep you from using the Ruger magazines or the Keltec magazines in their gun. They appear to basically be the same. I can actually, if I put the Ruger magazine in it and I hold it down, I can actually chamber around into the gun. But it will just fall out eventually. It doesn't actually latch in the latch there. So I don't like that. I really don't like that about the Taurus TCP. Another thing I don't like is the fact that this little back portion there, they've gone to making their magazines like this, and it has a little lip there that it bites into, and that's all fine, nice. It actually does give you slightly more real estate than the TCP does, or the TCP gives you more real estate than the LCP does on the grip. Marginal, just a little bit, but you are able to really get those two fingers on in a way that on the Ruger I'm not, and I have smaller hands. But if you go to actuate this magazine release and you're trying to quickly reload, do you see what happens there? Okay, that one shot out. That was better. But what generally happens is I bring my hand like that and it catches there because the back of this magazine is so long. So if you're trying to reload quickly, get the next one in and go, it doesn't eject nicely. The Ruger LCP, wow, getting all these little words all mixed up. The Ruger always ejects for me because instead of putting that piece on, they left that piece on the magazine and they made the magazine as trim and as small as possible. Meaning that when I go to eject the magazine, it pops right out every time. It doesn't get hung up. So I don't like the unique nature of these magazines that Taurus has done. I have a little bit of question about why this morning I was not getting last shot hobo open with one of these magazines. Now I am. Will that act up again? That's a question. And then I hate how the magazine does not drop free, how it gets hung up there on my hand. And again, I have a small hand. If you're a big guy, I think this is going to happen to you every time unless you're going to rotate this gun and, boom, then the magazine falls out fine. So it's not the mechanism in the gun. The magazine falls out fine every time. But if I hold it like that and do that, it gets hung up. So then I have to bring my hand up and jerk it out. So those are some of the reasons I don't like the Taurus. I don't like the way it looks. The magazines kind of scare me a little bit on their reliability. And the way it works there is the last shot hold open. There's a little piece of metal that clicks into that little slot and holds it down. And it recognizes and then locks the slide back. That scares me that it wasn't working early this morning. I wish I could have videoed it and showed you guys. I didn't. And now after shooting it, it's working fine again. But that is a little bit scary to me. And I don't like how the magazines do not drop free because they catch on my hand because, again, they chose to make this magazine unique and special. But the TCP, the Taurus TCP, definitely has a lot to offer. It is accurate. It is very reliable. I like the trigger on it better than I like on the Ruger LCP. I like the last shot hold open. And I like the slightly better sights. I can deal with the slightly additional thickness that it has, the slight weight, less than half an ounce, that this gun weighs more than the Ruger LCP. When you buy this gun, it comes with the 2 magazines. It also comes with this little carrying case. Rather than giving you something like Ruger does here, in this just a little case that your gun could go in, range case, padded case, Taurus decided to give you kind of a case/holster. And I think they intend you to put this on your belt and then have the gun in this holster, in this little case, making the gun very concealable. I personally would never ever wear this. I just wouldn't. I'm not going to walk around with this big thing on my belt. Anyone who knows me well would instantly recognize that it was a gun. I think most people would think it was strange. Not many people have a handheld cell phone or other device that's that big. So it's cool that they were being innovative. I personally don't like it or need it, but it's cool that they were thinking outside the box. You reach your hand in and push it up. Another thing I like about this gun is the fact that it is made in the U.S. Stamp right there. TCP, made in USA. At a time where many companies continue to outsource jobs away from America, Taurus, which has generally made weapons in South America, and the magazines say right on them, made in Brazil, Taurus is deciding to make this gun in the U.S., and I like that. I like the fact that Taurus is choosing to bring jobs to the U.S. when others are choosing to take jobs away from the U.S. So, I like Taurus TCP. I think it is a good option for concealed carry. It is accurate. It has been very reliable. And I definitely would think that you should consider it as you look at many of these 380 autos that are on the market. I give the TCP a thumbs up. I say think about it. If you like the trigger, if you like the way it looks, if you don't mind just being able to pull that magazine out, that's just a training thing. I mean, it's a big deal to me. It might not be a big deal to you. You're just going to bring your hand up, and then the next magazine will come in. Not a problem. You guys, many of you who might be used to shooting guns that have a heel catch on it, might actually prefer that. That might be something you're used to, being able to reach up and have to pull your magazine out rather than a drop free. So, TCP, it's a good gun. It's run reliably for me. The problem I wanted to show you did not surface, so maybe it's gone. Maybe just needed a couple more rounds ran through it. The gun has run reliably for me. No failure to fire. No jams, no stovepipes, none of that kind. I've shot probably 100 rounds through this gun, and this gun has had hundreds of other rounds fired through them by the owner. And I know the owner, and I've been there when he shot it many times, and he shot it many times without me, but I've seen it run reliably. I think it is an excellent gun. If you like its looks, if you're willing to deal with some of the issues I've talked about here, and you want that added benefit of a slightly better sight, having that last shot hold open, which is a really cool thing. I wish they'd put that on the LCP, and having a slightly better trigger, I would say go ahead, run down to your local store and purchase it. It's a good gun.